All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming to our Speed Rack Academy session. This is week 2 of Speed Rack Academy. We have one more week ahead of us. This week, all proceeds are going to the Pink Agenda, which is an organization Speed Rack has been working with for a very long time. For those of you who do not know, Speed Rack is an organization that empowers women in the food and beverage industry to, strut their stuff, do what they do. And amongst all of the individuals today, we have a few individuals who have competed. I see some familiar names here. All of the women who competed in season 9 were invited back to do Speed Rack Academy. So we're really excited to have Amie Ward doing her thing today. And the topic, actually, I'll let you introduce yourself first, and then we'll get into what the topic is.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you, LP. My name's Amie Ward. I am coming to you from Chicago, Illinois, by way of Baltimore, Maryland. Been out here for about a year. Yeah, so I've competed in Speed Rack for 2 seasons, season 8 on the East Coast and season 9 in Chicago. And it's a super important organization for me personally. I love all of the philanthropic adventures of trying to raise money for breast cancer research. I've not personally been impacted by breast cancer, but there's been lung cancer in my family. I lost the most important person in my entire life, my grandmother, to that just this past year. So anything to be able to help draw attention to and raise funds for cancer research is super duper, 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 duper important to me. But yeah, I can tell you all about the drink, but LP, if you want to do the rest of your introductory process with the mostest thing.
For sure. So we have Amie coming on today. We're going to be discussing the topic of zero waste, and we thank the sponsor Royal Dutch, specifically Cherry Hearing, for allowing us to be able to do this today. Additionally, for those of you who do not know, we are offering a free week's pass to week 3 that will be starting tomorrow. All you have to do is DM us at SpeedRack, and we will send you a code that allows you to be able to access all of those classes. But yeah, I'm going to let them kick it off and enjoy.
Thank you. Yeah, so today we are focusing on zero waste cocktails, and I get to work with Royal Dutch Distillers, which is really, really awesome. Before even getting assigned this topic, it's always been something that's very important to me. I'm a very sustainable, focused bartender. In the previous programs that I ran, everything was as much low waste as humanly possible. I also am the beverage director for Camp Rodemock, and in that role, I do everything in my absolute power to try to reduce the footprint that we leave when we are in the middle of rural Kentucky 2 weeks out of the year. I can say that I easily make 15,000 cocktails each of those weeks. And in doing so, I only use 2 cases of lime, 2 cases of lemon, 2 cases of orange. I'm very much into finding creative ways to utilize other acids, be able to use all the byproducts from whatever chef is using in her side of the kitchen, and be able to reutilize her waste, but also give any scraps that I might have over to her. So it's a wonderful symbiotic relationship that we have for that. But I'm very proud to say that we have been able to churn out that amount of cocktails every single week using barely any citrus at all, especially when you think about how much you're putting out there. So everything that I do is very much focused on how to create the least amount of waste possible. And Royal Dutch Distillers is doing the same exact thing. And it was really great to read about in addition after getting paired up with them. And now I see how much that makes sense and why they are the sponsor for this. So we have, if you want to start with Cherry Hearing, which is something that we all use in classic cocktails and with some new riffs as well. They use every part of their cherry to make that spirit in and of itself. Bebo coffee liqueur is actually made with a byproduct from the gins and the Genevers that they make. So that's super rad too. And then for the Genever itself, I was super interested in utilizing this because it has walnuts and hazelnuts that are actually used in the actual basket for it. And they roast the walnuts and hazelnuts first. So that gave me a good idea as to how I wanted to play with all the ingredients that were going to be going in here. And Ariana, if at any point in time you want to bounce in and tell a little bit more about the distillery in and of itself, because I know that you all are OU Kosher as a facility, and that there's a huge effort towards corporate social responsibility that you all are championing in terms of like being able to source the right raw ingredients, being able to reduce the energy waste that you all have. But if you want to talk more about that, you're more than welcome to at any point in time. But I think it's makes complete sense, and it's a huge honor to be able to be paired up with this brand because they are doing so much good work in terms of trying to reduce their footprint in the world, reduce the amount of waste that they have, use good responsible, ethical business things.
Yeah, no, thanks, Amie. It's good bartenders like you that allow us to fully communicate to everyone, you know, this is important. It's affecting not only us as people, but everything in the world. So really appreciate all that you do and what you stand for. And we're glad to have you sit behind our products and our products in front of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what I decided to do today was, LP had said something when she came on. She saw my bananas on here. Like, I'm a banana freak. I love bananas and I love flamingos. So those are the two biggest things that I have going on in my world. But I try to sneak banana into absolutely everything that I can possibly make. Whether you like banana or not, I'm going to make sure that you like it in some capacity. But the biggest thing that drew me to that is because I saw that they had the Big O coffee liqueur, and to me, coffee and banana is like the ultimate pairing because that's my morning. Every single morning starts with a banana, starts with some coffee. So I wanted to be able to make something with that. But knowing that there was that hazelnut and walnut that was going into the Denver itself, which is then used to make that coffee liqueur, I knew that the banana and trying to focus maybe on like a baking spice type of spin of things would work really well for this. So what I decided to do was use every part of the banana to make this cocktail. So not only do we have these three spirits that we're going to be utilizing in the cocktail, but what I've made, I don't have like cute little bottles in my house because it's not bartending right now. But what I did, I started by making a banana syrup. And it's super, super easy. I took one overly ripe banana. Like, this is clearly for show because you want to get the stuff that's browned and almost getting to the point of being leaky. And like, maybe I should throw that banana out, but like, maybe you should bake with it or make some cool drinks instead. But I basically took one banana that was overly ripe. I chopped it up and then I put it into a saucepan with a cup and a half of water. So that was the base of it. Then I put a little pinch of kosher salt in there. And started to, I put it on a boil, tried to get everything going, so it started to break down the banana a little bit. Then what I used was a local honey that's produced in Chicago. So a raw honey from a beekeeper that is just like a couple blocks that way. That I'm super familiar with their practices. I'm able to buy their products from the local farmers market at Logan Square on Sundays. So use that as a sweetener because I'm also not a huge fan of having overly sweet cocktails. I'm very much a bitter palate, but I also know that I'm not necessarily the majority and we want to make something that's palatable for everybody. So I like using honey just because I think that it is such a good blender with a lot of the flavors that were already in here. Also knowing like where it came from, knowing that the bees are treated well, knowing that the people who are actually harvesting and working at the apiary are being treated well as well. All that sustainable, ethical way in which you're sourcing your ingredients, kind of trying to keep an ode to everything that was going on with the Royal Dutch products. So boiled all that down and ended up coming up with this kind of light colored little syrup. It's not too viscous. It's pretty even tempered. It's a little bit thicker than water, but it's not as thick as a normal like sugar syrup would be, a simple syrup. So I had that. Then I took the peel of that banana and I kept it. So we can use the peel, we can eat the peel. The peel is loaded with fiber and potassium, so it's a great thing that you can utilize just for your own health, as long as you like bananas. But you can utilize that. So what I did with the peels is after washing them off, I cut them up and I put them back into that saucepan that had been cleaned out after I filtered everything for the syrup. And I boiled it down with about 2 cups of water to make some banana tea. And for that banana tea, the banana peel itself already has like a lot of great flavors that are going in there. But this is your opportunity to add those additional baking spices to really play up the flavors that you want. So I use some, I do have like the prepackaged pumpkin spice seasoning, because this is my favorite time of year. Is it is Halloween time and November time, and times for baking and times for candy and times for all of those things. So I went very much into my Betty Crocker world and pulled out my pumpkin spice, which is cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and a little bit of salt and black pepper. Put that into my tea that I was boiling and let that steep pretty long. So it is a pretty faint flavor that comes from the banana peel itself. So I steep a little bit longer than what I would normally do for a tea. Also, I'm using a fresh peel. If I had had a peel that had been dried out or baked down and had that more concentrated flavor, I might not have to have steeped it for quite as long. But I let this steep for 10 minutes to pick up the most amount of flavor. Then I strained all of that out, and I took the leftover bits from the syrup, which is like the good stuff of the inside of the banana, and I took the peels and everything that was left over for making the tea, and I blended that down and put it in my dehydrator. So I'm also a huge fan of making like fruit roll-ups or little wafers, things like that, because you can do that with your lemons, limes, oranges if you want to use every part of your fruit that you're working with. And what I'm able to come up with is these cute little, like, I made little banana wafers, crackers for the garnish. And in that I actually threw in a little bit of the cherry hearing as well, to just bring out a little bit more of tying that flavor together, not overpowering, but just kind of subtle. And now I have a dope little tasty wafer that's gonna be my garnish for the actual cocktail. But that's not all. We are going low and no waste. So I try to make sure that there is no ice utilized for this product as well. I was just wiping off the bottles beforehand because I put all of my cocktail ingredients in the freezer. I kept my tea and my syrup in the refrigerator because I can't obviously let them freeze or else they get rock solid, and that's problematic. My mixing glasses in the freezer, my spoons in the freezer, my jiggers in the freezer, my strainers in the freezer. And if you're like me, if you were to be drinking whiskey for any reason, you drink it neat. So I find no reason to have whiskey stones, except I do have whiskey stones. So I have these nice ice cold whiskey stones that are going to be in the bottom of my mixing glass that will actually help with the agitation of the cocktail.
Yes, Amy.
We're not using any ice whatsoever, and I basically calculated this out. So it's going to be 1.5 ounces of the root. It's going to be 1 ounce of the babo. It's going to be 1/4 ounce of the cherry hearing. We've got 1 ounce of the syrup. And then I added that volume up, and I did a 25% dilution is what I was looking for, because this is going to be more of a dessert type cocktail, and it's really robust flavors. So I wanted to dilute it enough to make it palatable, not overly, it's not overly sweet in any way, but I also know that those flavors could present themselves as sweet to a palate upon first taste. So I wanted to dilute it just a touch more. So the dilution is actually coming from the tea. Rather than using water or wasting any more water, I'm using exactly what I put into this tea as my dilution in and of itself. So this is 1.5 ounces of the banana tea that's going to be the dilution. So enough talking. I'll actually make the cocktail for you now. But the reason I was wiping everything off is because I'm trying to make sure these bottles don't slip out of my hand now that I have had them in the freezer and they are slowly defrosting at this point in time. But, so this is in the same capacity, like, I think a couple years ago, there was a pretty big hit on people doing room temp cocktails. And it doesn't always work for me. I think it takes a very special blend of ingredients to make that happen. This one felt good being a cold cocktail to me. So I did try it both at room temp and as a cold cocktail. And I really just like the way it tasted more with that chill factor. So that's why we went that way. But I mean, if you want to, you're in a bar setting, you are able to do this yourself where you don't have to use all of the ice in the world. Everybody has low boys. If you have room to place your mixing glasses and your cocktail glasses, which mine's still in the freezer right now, so I'm waiting for that for the absolute last minute, you can make this happen. And the beautiful thing is this is something you can build, and because I'm using whiskey stones, or there's also like nylon, reusable ice cubes, anything like that could work for this. Because I'm not going to add any additional dilution into this by going any bit like having to walk away from these stones. So I can build around, walk away. It's kind of an interesting way to think about saving time. Yeah, there we go with that. Let me get my glass.
Amie, what advice do you have for people who are looking to have cocktails just batched all together and in their fridge?
This could actually work perfectly fine. I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is that you still want to be able to get that amalgamation, the blending of the flavors. So yeah, you can take this spoon and you can stir it around if you wanted to. But another good thing to do would be like put it in a bottle, and then you can either put like a little, because I had tons of these, but if you have a container where you can put it in and have like a little blender bottle spirally guy in there, you could shake it and that'll get some of that aeration in there and agitation that you want. But that's the biggest thing, is making sure that you have some way to provide that agitation still for the cocktail. So here is our cocktail, and I'll try to like, see if I can tilt my, it's kind of hard. Let's see if I can put it on white. My beautiful black counters are not helpful for this right now. And then sorry, I'm trying. So we have our delightful dessert cocktail here, and it's a dessert cocktail that still packs a little punch, and you can take a sip of the cocktail, you can eat the garnish, and go back and forth and kind of enjoy it that way. For the garnish, like I made the crispy wafer version. You could also let it be a little softer, and you could have it more of a fruit roll-up kind of content if you wanted. But for me, for this particular type of cocktail, I wanted to be able to have like a little nibble of something in addition to my drink itself. And if you want to, like the banana is something super easy to filter out. So I did start to put the tea through a coffee filter to try to take out some of the color, but I also don't mind color in my cocktail. And I'm not going to be able to get rid of the color from the cherry hearing or the babo. So like there's no point in really trying to take away any of that additional stuff. But if you ever want to use that banana tea in a different setting, you are more than welcome to try and filter it out just with like a standard coffee filter and get it to be clearer. That's definitely something you can do. So, but yeah, so that's the cocktail. And I called it the Hummingbird because I thought that there was a much funnier, so the Hummingbird is on the Babo coffee liqueur here, but there is a very cute story that Ariana was telling me about the actual owner of the company and why this came about. So Ariana, would you like to tell that story?
Yeah. So Miriam Hendricks is the master distiller of not only Babo, but Old Simon Geneva. And she lived in Cuba for years. We like to joke and say that before she was married to a man in Cuba, which is why she moved there. And before she got divorced, she used to make the Babo coffee for her mother-in-law. Felt that Cuban coffee, the way that they produce it and the taste that goes behind it is just the best that she's ever had. And voila, now we have Babo coffee liqueur, which is also, as Amie pointed out earlier, we use the byproducts of our Genevers, our vodka, our gins, and we like to always use, there's always a purpose for everything. So this is why we created the Babo coffee liqueur. And the Hummingbird is just perfect. I feel like we should put you next to it on the label with your outfit there. Yeah, so that's what we have going on.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so like I chose banana because banana is one of my favorite things to work with. I'm obsessed with them. But you can do so much with eliminating your waste from all of your outfit matches of fruit. Yeah. It's shocking that I don't have flamingos on today. This is my tropical Cthulhu dress, you know, Cthulhu for president. So, but you, sorry.
I said, I think it's amazing.
Sorry, I enjoy all my tropical things, all of my flamingo things, and Cthulhu. But, so I think last night Kelly was on and she was talking about, I believe she was going to be doing pineapple and lime, if I'm correct. And so we were talking a little bit about that too, and wanted to kind of piggyback, if she had already talked about it last night. Like, if you're using your pineapples, fresh pineapples, that's totally great. You have a multitude of different things you can use. Not only can you juice the insides, use the insides for garnish if you wanted to, you can use the fronds for garnish, but those scraps are super useful as well. You can make tapache, you can make some shrubs. Really, there's a lot to be done with that. You can still continue like baking with the core. The core never has to be thrown out because that can be turned into a million different things. You can also serve the cocktail out of, I mean, it's not something you can do on a frequent basis. It's probably a one-off, more special thing. But if you have smaller pineapples, you can serve those drinks right out of there. In terms of the use of the limes, limes are super easy to be used as boats if you want to do something simple with that. You can also use them to make lime stock. I'm a huge fan of like alternative or like stretching. I like to stretch in my normal life, but I also like to stretch my ingredients whenever I can. So I use those lime husks to make lime cordial or lime stock, something that can be used in place of just lime juice. That way I don't have to lose that. And when you do that lime stock, you boil down the hulls with regular water, and then you can kind of balance it with different acids, citric malic. If you're into different like tartaric and lactic acid, you can do different acids to bring about a different flavor and something that mimics the same acidity that you would get from lime. And you can do that with the actual husks themselves. You can also puree those down. I mean, if you got yourself a good blender, puree those down with a little bit of juice and a little bit of sugar if you want to, or whatever kind of like well-sourced sugar that you have. All of that stuff blends down well and dehydrates and turns into, again, the fruit leathers if you want to do it, or take the scraps, dehydrate them down, blend them down, and you can turn them into like salts. There's a lot of different things that you can do with different husks and hulls of the different citrus that you have. Trying to think of what else. I'm huge on, so I love doing the bananas. Everything with lime and lemon is always a big thing. If you ever are into watermelons, when you get down to watermelons, you can use all that juice. The pulp can be used afterwards to make shrubs, whatever you want to do with that. Then you can pickle the rinds as well and use that as a garnish. And the pickling, like, it's really your taste. Like, some people do hot and spicy watermelon rinds. Like, you can do jalapenos or some kind of like zippiness to get them going, but basically you just gotta let them settle down with some vinegar over a couple of days, and they'll get real soft, and they are super delicious, and they last a long time, especially if you're like trying to stretch things in a good way that's not gonna like create waste or go bad on you very quickly too. Let me look and see if there's any questions in the chat, because I see that it's blowing up. Recipe for lime stock. Yes, so I think the easiest thing to start with, I believe that when you're using alternative acids and stocks, it is going to go down to what your palate really appreciates. A really good baseline for making the stocks is on that Trash Tiki website. I love using theirs. And then I started to learn and play with my acids as I was going along. And I adjust mine a little bit differently than theirs. But my palate's not the same as any other palate in here. And it also may differ depending on what type of restaurant or bar that you're working at. So maybe you're trying for something that's a little bit lighter acidity, something that might be a little bit more perky. Like, it really is dependent upon what you're trying to produce. So it all comes down to taste. And obviously it's not the same exact thing as lime or as fresh lemon or something like that, but it really is, what kind of product are you trying to put out for the guests that are coming into your bar? Like, make something that tastes good. At the end of the day, that's what we want. We want them to enjoy their experience, enjoy their cocktail, and not even have to think about what production went into making this acid that went into the cocktail. Like, that's not on their mind. That's more on your mind, but you can share that love with people as you're going through and talking about your cocktails too. Trying to think of what else I do with all my scraps. I'm huge on making tomato water instead of like bloody mix itself. So I end up going through tons of tomatoes when I'm making these things at camp or everywhere else. But when I sweat out those tomatoes and get all the water out of it, what you have left over is great for pasta sauce. Like you just get the strung out last bits of the tomatoes, and you have such a concentrated leftover bit that it can be used for paste and for making any of your sauces. So that's always really fun. Yeah, I'm like super into making shrubs and super into making fruit roll-ups. That was like one of my happy times from being a child, is all the fruit roll-ups in the world. And yeah, the little tidbit of like making the banana tea and using that as dilution. You should do that in every other part of your world. If you're trying to think about doing stuff that can be batched out cocktails, instead of just using water, think about what you can use that you have to add the dilution, right? So think about a way in which you can save on utilizing or wasting water. You can take leftover liquid from whatever you've been producing and you can put it into ice cubes, and that could be what you serve your cocktail with, is like lime stock in cubes in my cocktail, or I use tea and that becomes a dilution. So think about getting a little bit more creative with how you utilize your water sources, like making sure that the water doesn't go to waste and that you're able to use it in a multitude of different ways. Yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can save from having to waste any of the products that you're utilizing. Anybody else have like questions or best practices?
That's super important that you say that, Amie. And it's interesting because with Old Simon, Geneva, and our gins that we use, we use a bitter and sweet orange peel. So like the citrus from that, but then you have the actual orange left over. So what do you do with that after you use the peel? And Miriam Hendricks makes orange juice and gives it to everyone. So it's just a fun way to, not even fun, it's just, of course you would do that, you know? And so hopefully that same mindset goes through. And it's interesting to hear about the tomato juice that you then made into a tomato sauce. So yeah.
And with all your spent botanicals that you're utilizing for, like, you're already using this byproduct, but if somebody wasn't doing that already, those botanicals or those citrus peels that you're talking about, that can be used to make your own tinctures. Exactly. There comes that line of like, it's not approved to be a bitter, so don't call it a bitter, but like you could have your own tinctures that you are taking close care of, making sure that you're not putting anything that's not edible into them, and make other things that you can use to ramp up your cocktails in different ways. Tea, yeah, and like there's a big kick towards tea lately. I found that when I was, we were doing a discussion about frozen cocktails, and frozen cocktails have to use a lot of water to dilute them, or else, like, you know, you have to have a lot of sugar and you have to have a certain amount of sugar and a certain amount of water, or else your product doesn't freeze in the first place. And a lot of people were talking about how they've been utilizing teas, whether it's chai or spearmint or whatever you can get your hands on, but utilizing that as the dilution because it has to be in there. So why not add a little bit more impactful flavor from it? Banana peels to make a cordial. Yes. So my obsession with bananas started some time ago when I was making my own cordial to begin with. And it was blending down some super, super ripe bananas. And I was actually blending them down with whiskey and sugar. So I was trying to make a kind of, I kind of wanted to have that whiskey taste with it. But I did whiskey, vodka, and sugar and made my first cordial with it as well. Obviously tons of water, tried to balance it out. There's like an actual method to the madness, I promise, for that part. But yeah, the peels work great. And like, I know there's some concerns about, there is definitely concerns about like ingesting the banana peels, but so long as they are washed down, and that's why I also take that extra step of boiling them down. So if there could be anything on there, if you didn't have the opportunity to buy something organic, obviously we're not producing a lot of local bananas. I was trying to find local pawpaws so I could do the most of like being as like ethical and sustainable about finding this as well, but pawpaws have like a very short ripening season around here. But yeah, you can utilize them in that way, and once you blend them down, like the peels are super bitter on their own, so they would make a great tincture in and of themselves. I have not done that personally. That seems like a logical next step for myself. But utilizing them when you boil them and when you blend them and you dehydrate them, that takes away that bitterness. So like if you were to be chomping on this thing, you're not really going to know that there's any peel in it. It's just going to taste like a little banana cookie, little banana wafer to you. So when it does boil down, when it does get blended up, especially with like the regular pulp, and then gets put either into tincture, tea, some dehydrated form like that, like you can't actually taste that you're dealing with a peel anymore. It just tastes like full banana, which makes my heart very, very happy. Boil, blend with sugar, add alcohol. In terms of the cordial, yeah, yep. And I had actually started by not boiling them, but I do that now as like best practice, just to be super safe. But that was that, and then you can just kind of let it steep and taste the way you want it to. Always a smart move, even if you're using high-proof things, to put it into the fridge while you're letting it marinate, so you can figure out, you know, keep it safe and delicious while you're at it. But yeah, you taste it to your desired kind of like preference there. Yeah. What other things do you want to know about bananas? Trying to think of some other creative things I've done. I know I talked about the salts very briefly, but most scraps that you have, like if it's something that wouldn't necessarily taste, if you're concerned about the way it would taste in like its format or being like steeped as a cordial, liqueur, whatever, you can always blend up those bitter bits and then mix them with some salt to make that like your lime salt, your lemon salt, your orange salt, whatever, and that makes for an awesome rim. Great for cocktails, great for food. If you're looking for something a little bit on the sweeter side, obviously you can nix that and change it to mixing those with sugars instead of salt. Coconut sugar is a really fun one to play with because it's not as overwhelming as a white or a brown sugar, and will let more of your flavor from that actual lime, lemon, orange come out and be a little bit more apparent, which is kind of cool. What other questions do we have? Any other best practices that everybody else has done that I have not tried, or maybe am not thinking of right now? Has anybody made their like tapache with your pineapple scraps and whatnot?
Tapache is fun because you can throw like pineapple juice that's not exactly fresh but not exactly bad in there too.
Yes. And that's something I would say for most of the cordials. Like that's how I'm able to stretch lime stock, is by I'm taking juice that's about to be spent, like it's at its 48 hours, and like even those 2 days is a bit too much. Like you might be a 24-hour place, and that's fine. I know that we have 2 services. Depending on what guide you go by, you have 2 services in which you can utilize your juice before you need to waste it. But when you're going to be adding sugar to it and it's going to be taking on a completely different flavor anyways, it allows you to stretch that and utilize it in a different way. There's certainly something different that a lime cordial versus fresh lime juice or a lime acid alternative provides to one another. There's definitely 2 different textures that are going into your palate that you have to worry about. And in order to like be able to say like, I can utilize this past what I can use this lime juice past the normal like shelf life to turn it into something else, it's because I don't need it to have that specific brightness that fresh lime juice does have. I need it to be able to coat the mouth and kind of dry out the palate in that capacity. So I think that's a really good way to stretch things, is being able to turn them into cordials like that. And tapache with the lime juice, or with the pineapple juice, is exactly the same thing, and I love being able to do that. And tapache, you can kind of like, you can jazz that up too. Like the most simple thing, the immediate thing is like baking spices always seem to go really well with making that tapache, but you can also try throwing in some other fruit scraps. and changing the flavor a little bit. You can keep it on the more acidic side, and you don't necessarily have to go towards that like warming, fuzzy feeling that it normally gets with all the baking spices and trying to think of the little cone sugar that we generally use for them. It's totally escaping my brain right now. But you can play with the different sugars and be able to utilize that too. Yes, thank you. Yes. Yes. What else?
We use a similar piloncillo in Peruvian cooking. So there's a type that they use, and we make chancaca, which is a dark, rich brown syrup that's like a demerara, but then you add star anise, cloves, cinnamon, orange peels.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Peels that way.
There is also, I feel like Luis was talking about it at some point in time. Is it chicha? Is the Venezuelan version?
Morada, also Peruvian. There's chichas different in different countries, but Peru has one as well with the corn.
Yes.
So we actually at La Masan this summer started using the white corn stalks and roasting them after we took the corn off, and then using those to make a white chicha.
Oh, that sounds.
You would use dried purple corn, but that's another way. Like corn stalk is another really cool thing to do. Torching it though, when Chef had us torch it, that added a nice different middle note, I thought, which was really
kind of like caramelizing in a way.
Yeah, it's roasted, caramelizing, that little popcorny thing comes out, which is really nice.
Chicha morada is amazing. Just on its own, it's so good. It doesn't even need desserts, but that's like takes it to another level.
White chicha was damn good, but that was a way to be more sustainable because there was a corn in a dish.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make some chicha because on the tasting menu, so we did the white chicha, which was a different experiment. So trying different ways to do that.
That sounds delightful.
It was good.
I wish we would. Unfortunately, we're out of corn season, even though.
I know. It's like we all need to think ahead. I think so. There's two questions I have. One, I think menu planning with sustainability is something you and I are going to have to like many sessions privately to chat through it. But I think that's an important one, right? Because it's like you're trying to plan a menu. You're always doing citrus, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's so hard sometimes, I feel like, to get my staff to get on board with it. And so I don't know if you have any tips for like how to motivate them to just like do it. I'm like, stop. I'm like, I'll either compost all of it or let's make something out of it.
So it is you trying to get your team to save their waste. I mean, you could make it a by shift, however much poundage you can save during a shift, whoever gets the most of that, like. And also, like, I'm sure that you already do it too, but like, give them the responsibility of creating the cocktails on the menu. I know you've got a beverage director who is brilliant as well, but like allowing your team to be able to take ownership of the cocktails, so they have to actually like, and here are your rules. You cannot use fresh this. You have to do that. Like, I always made it a challenge for my team when I had it. I was like, you can make anything you want, but it has to be 5 ingredients or less, including the garnish. And you can't use fresh citrus. And they're like, holy crap, well, how do I, like, it gets them all jazzed up about thinking outside the box. Like, get them as excited about a flavor Bible as everybody else in this room already is. Like, that's our like first line of defense. And then for like the planning of stuff too, that's your opportunity to work with, I mean, you're in the middle of New York, so it's a little bit more difficult, but being able to work with your local farmers markets and like, see what they're going to have during the year and see if you can buy them out of whatever, all the peaches that they might have. So you can can them, you can freeze them. I mean, if you get all the stuff at their prime and you freeze them, that's totally fine, because when you freeze them, you know you have frozen them at their optimal state of freshness. And that's the same thing for some, like, we always want to try to go fresh first, just for our health and safety in general. If you can't do that and you've got suppliers that can provide it, buying frozen is the next step, because you know that it's supposed to have been, the regulations will have it like frozen at its optimal fresh state. Wow, can't say anything. Ripe state. And then canned is like the last thing that you want to do. But if you're canning it, then you know exactly, like, the care, time, and consideration that's gone into those things. So being able to can and make preserves, like all of these fruits and stuff can, like the citrus ones, the ones with more pectin, can be used to make marmalades, and the marmalades can be utilized to make your syrups throughout the year. You can use all those scraps to make cordials, and then you can vacuum seal, freeze, you know, and be able to save those things that way. But really being able to work with any kind of local farmers, seeing what they have, trying to get, like, establish that relationship, help the community, get like the scratching of each other's backs, get the ingredient that you want to be able to use throughout the entire year in one huge like lot. And then part of your work during the summertime is canning, preserving, and making sure that it's ready to use throughout the rest of the winter time as well. Big shrub person. Yes, I'm a huge shrub person. Milk punch I have never gotten into, and it's mainly because I am a lactose intolerant person. And I know there is some stuff you can do with coconut milk, full fat coconut milk, but I have not gone down that. Ooh, okay. Maybe one with soy milk. I'm interested in trying that. I never got into it just because I was like, well, I can't enjoy this anyways.
Yeah, the soy chef was making fresh soy, and it actually has more acid actually in it.
Really?
So it was actually quite easy to clarify.
So was it easier? Did it curdle just the same? Did it do everything you wanted? Interesting.
So you have to get a good quality soy, like the, you know, I guess you could probably, yeah, because you're to be completely dairy free. I would say like it's similar to like it had enough acidity, almost like the whey of yogurt, actually.
Interesting.
If you get a good quality soy, it can be that way, and it did the same thing. It had the solids, and it was really yummy. Had enough lactic acid in it to give it the texture. There you go.
All right. Then I will open my eyes back up to this again. And I will try my milk punch.
For a winter challenge, we'll make some totally dairy-free milk punch.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Right. Bye, Mimi. Thank you for being here.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to think of what else we do with scraps.
And those are pretty good ones.
Yeah, we went pretty hard at my last place. Like I was very excited to be able to make it and like to get the rest of the team super jazzed on doing different things, like having to think outside of the box. So they're using like frozen purees instead of fresh things, and knowing that they can try different options, and teaching them like how to use acids and use those to their palate and to their drink needs.
Well, I guess a good point is like winter is the best time for citrus, right? So it's like, this is our best time. So try to think forward with like all the citrus you have now to maybe make summer more sustainable.
Yep, absolutely. And it's just like what you had said beforehand. It's all about planning. Like sketch out what the year looks like. Do you change your menu 4 times a year? Do you change it twice a year? Is it a one huge overhaul during the year, like for the entire year? Like all it takes is, honestly, any successful bartender is someone who knows how to plan out how to make things happen. Like they plan out answering emails. They plan out their menus. They plan out when to practice for speed rack. They plan out absolutely everything. So if you can get that extra attention into planning out what you want to accomplish, like you can do it. And like, just be comfortable thinking outside the box. Like use weird stuff, experiment. Like you would be surprised at how magical some flavor combinations are. So use what's local to you if you can, and then use what will last, what has good shelf life. Yeah.
I need to pick your brains for yours and LPs on your tapache recipes.
Okay.
Because I love tapache, but I know that now there's so many different like regional styles. So I'm just kind of learning that like the Dominican Republic, which actually I should probably call Louise, has a very different style of tapache than Mexico. And I get into like the regional.
Yes, my Baltimore regional style tapache is probably not as good as that within Central America, but Central South America, but
I really need to hear the Baltimore regional tapache recipe. From Baltimore, I need to heir this.
Not Old Bay. That's all you really need to know.
Oh no.
If it's not Old Bay, then it's not Maryland. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yes, chef.
Oh, Old Bay. Yum. I just got like such a savory craving for that.
There's like 6 canisters of Old Bay in my house right now. That's just how this house rolls.
I love it. I love it.
It's so real.
I love it.
Next, we'll try to avoid like a seashell allergy and do a blue crab steeped something, infuse something or other. It can make it work. You never know. Savory things, salty.
I believe in you, but oh my God.
It would be a new saline solution. This is blue crab saline solution.
Exactly.
Blue crab tincture.
Yeah. And literally anything is possible.
I'm fascinated, Ariana, how they managed to use cherry herring as their house grenadine, or they just put it in their house grenadine. So we have 18-room / bathtub gen use cherry herring in their house-made grenadine. So just to probably bump it up, I guess, right? Fortify it.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they just used, they didn't use as much sugar.
Yeah.
So it gave that like syrup taste to it, or that syrup texture to it. And the first time I tried it, I was amazed. I was like, this is great. And because their cocktail program is 0 waste, it all made sense with using that as opposed to sugar that they had to take out of a bag.
Huh.
That's so cool.
Highly recommend. It was really good. Not my idea at all. Completely Brendan's. So
That's rad. Very cool. I mean, so much good stuff to talk about.
Well, I mean, I think another interesting point is pomegranates are going to have a fleeting season soon too. They come around in a weird time, right? Like they're like, I feel like pomegranates and blood oranges are like those 2 things.
Weird February 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're like, it totally is. It's like catching lightning. You're like, did I catch the pomegranate or the blood orange season? And when you do, like, that's another cool thing is to preserve those, or use those juices. And then, I mean, there's so much cool stuff of boiling down. And when I was in Israel, how they were using like our normal juicer to like juice pomegranates fresh. And it was just like,
oh, that would make life so much easier.
so much easier. I was like, oh, duh.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
We're in a country that grows pomegranates, so you clearly have a better system for this.
Pomegranate seeds can be a really beautiful garnish in like a champagne cocktail too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love those seeds, but again, they're fleeting, right? And so it's like I love pomegranate and blood orange. Those are 2 things that I'm like I love so much, and they're just like you said, it's 2 weeks. I'm like, chef, we have to order all the blood oranges right now. And then like,
you get the blood oranges that are ripe and not like just
the ones that are pink, and then they get deep red. But it's like that's my cross to bear. I'm like, when will I find the right season for the blood oranges?
2 weeks for a blood orange.
I need to buy all of them and do everything.
Yup.
Juice mimosas are so
Dry some, juice them, freeze them, make some citrus stock out of them. So maybe I'll start there. My goal will be catching lightning for 2 weeks, and
yes,
the big sustainability.
Buy them all and work fast. Go! Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was super cool. I really love this class.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is so great. I love all the programming that you're doing, and clearly we're raising money for good things. Pink Agenda.
We sure are.
Very happy to have Speed Rack in our life. It is very important, and I'm very grateful. So thank you all.
Thank you, Amie. This is really cool.
I love and miss you all so much. And so we're going to post the Academy up so people will be able to have access to these, because we do think there's been so much great information. And this was super cool. I'm like, my brain is like spinning in a million directions, and I think that's
all the things.
We're actually, LP and I completely forgot to record her Sherry Week one. her sherry one, which was so great. So we're gonna revive it for Sherry Week. So we'll let you all know. It's gonna be like the outlier one because it was so cool. But this was a really awesome class. I'm going to go bananas for bananas, and I have to research what pawpaws are now.
Oh yeah, you've got pawpaws near you too. Like
Really?
I was so naive that I thought that it was only a Maryland and Virginia thing, and then I came out here and they're like, oh no, Ohio has like a pawpaw festival every year, so like the Midwest has pawpaws aplenty.
Amie,
Lynette, I have some. I'm gonna bring them. I'll come. I'll bring them.
Pawpaws, yeah.
Amie, in our neighborhood, I've been doing a lot of stuff for my ecology class, which is like a 2-minute walk away. There is a massive pawpaw tree right by us, and we are allowed to go in there and take them. So it's right
I wish I
down
had
the
known.
street.
All right, part 2 of this class gonna be what to do with your pawpaws.
Yeah,
Pawpaw cocktail class.
Pawpapalooza. Pawpapalooza.
I'm ready.
Roll
Ready
that.
for Pawpapalooza.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Health tender initiatives happening too. Let's plug all the things.
Yeah, so I have been, since quarantine started, I've been teaching classes Tuesday through Friday for anybody in the hospitality industry, 11 a.m. Central to 12 o'clock. We do movement-based workouts that are open to any kind of ability. All the modifications in the world can be provided for you, but we've got an incredible group of bartenders that are just kind of like finding solace in hanging out with each other and sweating with one another and just having a good time doing that. So it's been really, really good to have that. That's Tuesday through Friday. Also Monday nights at 6 o'clock Central, we have our Herd online meetings, which are peer-to-peer groups that are open to hearing people's experience in the hospitality industry, whether you're dealing with recovery, mental health, or just the everyday, what it's like to be involved in this industry. Like, we have a support group that's up there. We have the backing of Herd, which is another nonprofit that is doing the same thing. So we've got lots of different things going on. You can follow me at the Health Tender, and always have some funny health related things that I'm posting on there.
I put it in here, and I'm also like, you and I need a sidebar. I want to drag you into one of my KB classes on a Saturday morning.
Yes, I know, we missed like the one opportunity. We were supposed to be able to work out together.
I know. I need you to meet Dasha because I know you're gonna love her. I'm like completely obsessed. But I'm like Dasha is your spirit animal, and I want to connect you both because she's been doing really cool stuff. Her Saturday classes benefit actually. She does them online, and they're benefiting. Like, she just takes donations for to actually stop child trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Sex
Okay.
trafficking, which is also another women's issue that's really good. So she's just really rad. I know you guys would get along, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, Amie and Dasha need to meet, and they'll become best friends.
I can't wait to become best friends. I know I got to meet Ivy's trainer as well, and
Awesome.
got her connected with like as many people. She's like, how do I work with bartenders? I was like, here's like a list of things that you could try to reach out to. Like, you just gotta ask. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody's trainers and becoming best friends with them.
Well, you're like the best guru because you can like understand in between. You also understand the real life of what everyone's going through, which I think is key.
Yeah, it's
Unrealistic trainers, and they're like, so maybe standing on your feet 10 hours a day for 4 days. You're like, yeah, well, that's my job. So
yeah. So it's definitely like just trying to be able to talk to people, understanding that I've been in the same position. I get what they're going through. I know that we are at kind of this like buffer part of where we're in a possibility to change the way that the system, our hospitality service system works. But while you are still living in the current iteration of it, like, bring 2 pairs of shoes and socks on a more than 8-hour shift and change them halfway through. And like, here's some little tips to take care of your body and just make sure that you can keep doing what you're doing, because we're in this for a reason. Like, we love working with people and we love creating experiences. So why not make sure that you can do that for a long time? Yeah, the class, I know I was talking to everybody in the middle of a class today, but I was doing a mobility specialist certification, where basically teaching even more ways to utilize like weird massage implements to help your bodies. And they sent me like a 5-inch shaky ball that you like, vibrating ball that you get to use, and like tiny little ones, but learned a lot of really cool stuff that I can't wait to share with the community again, of how to roll out and feel good and get rid of all the bumps and knots and bruises and everything that comes with the territory.
Love it. Well, thank you for your commitment to the sustainable body, the sustainable cocktail, and our industry. And thank y'all, Alicia, Ariana, thank you so much for being the brand guides tonight. And I really appreciate it. Again, for everyone, the Pink Agenda loves you. I love you so much. And I'm so stoked. The Academy has been really enlightening. I'm so happy to see all your faces, and it's been wonderful to see how brilliant of educators all of you have been. I'm like, you can never stop learning, everyone. This is a lifelong learning in our industry, and sharing and knowing what's going on is the best way. So join us for the rest of the week, and thank you so much for joining, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
It's so amazing to see you both.
Thank you so much. Oh, and we just got a $100 donation on Facebook for the Pink Agenda. Yeah.
Make sure to keep tabs on those, because if they didn't do it directly through our website, we won't know, but just email me all the donations that go through so we can tack it on to the Pink Agenda.
Woo!
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.